You've spelunked into the Matt Cave.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. This week, it is the aftermath of the NFL Draft, and because of the sale of Real Salt Lake, I didn't really get you all a primer on what to expect in this year's. Well, it's the time of the year that Matt loves the most. I really do. I love this time of year. I love the offseason. I love trades. I love roster construction, philosophies, how different teams approach things, and why the Jets will always suck. So I will go over if anybody from the state of Utah got drafted, and if they did, where did they go? Does the fit work? And yeah, that's where we'll be with that. Real Salt Lake, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know. The transfer window closed for MLS here on this previous week. April 25th was the last day for the transfer window in MLS for the spring window, whatever you want to call it, like spring window or early season window. I don't know. They should just get with the rest of the world and have the same transfer windows as everybody else, but no, Don Garber likes to be different, and that's why MLS will always be a second-rate league as long as he's in charge. Okay, I had to get that out of my system. But they actually made some moves, and they made, I don't know if they're smart moves, but they made moves that makes sense based on roster construction and how the team has been performing. So I'll go over those as well in this episode. And then later on, if time permits, we'll see how my rants go today. I'll go over the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remaster that was shadow launched this week and how I've liked it, how it's performed on computer, and all of that good stuff. So thank you all so much for being here. As always, like, comment, subscribe, like, whatever it is. I said like twice there. That's how important it is. However you listen, wherever you listen, it's a big deal. It does matter, especially for a program such as this. So please do that. And you can find me on Facebook, The Matt Cave Podcast. You can find me on YouTube, The Matt Cave Podcast, all one word. And that is basically where you can find me. You can find me on Instagram as well. I've been a little bit more active there, too. So, The Matt Cave Podcast, all one word on Instagram as well. So, all right, let's get into it. The NFL Draft, the annual fun 3 nights that I just truly enjoy. I've been watching the NFL Draft on ESPN since I was like 6 years old. And I've listened to Mel Kiper drone on and on, Todd McShay, Louis Riddick, all of the different draft experts. I don't really like Field Yates as much. I don't know. I prefer Todd McShay. I want the new bosses at ESPN to get him back because the reportee that he had with Mel Kiper was second to none. And his takes were good. They weren't always right, but neither is Mel Kiper. And the back and forth that those two had, it was fantastic. So, and I thought Todd McShay was the heir apparent to Mel Kiper. And I think he should come back. I really do. There's new bosses at ESPN. The same ones that let Todd McShay go aren't there anymore. So, get him back. It'll make the draft that much more fun. He was also great on college coverage as well during the games. But I digress. So for the state of Utah, there was not the greatest crop of pro talent available. There were 257 picks announced in the NFL Draft this year because no teams voided their picks by doing anything illegal like the Dolphins did last year, tampering allegations and whatnot. And of those 257 picks, 2 came from colleges located within the state of Utah. 2. Yeah, not the greatest year for NFL talent for any of these schools. For people with Utah ties, obviously we had Jackson Dart, the greatest high school football player potentially to ever come out of the state of Utah. Had 67 touchdown passes his senior year at Corner Canyon. Like, my goodness. But he went in the first round above Shedeur Sanders, and Kirk Herbstreit put it very well. I don't know if anybody stuck around for SportsCenter after the first round ended. I did for a little bit because I saw Kirk Herbstreit was going on there. And he said that he sees a lot of what Josh Allen was to the Buffalo Bills coming out of college. Now, I'm not saying Jackson Dart is going to be Josh Allen. That we'll have to wait and see. But he says he sees a lot of the same qualities that led to Buffalo picking Josh Allen that he sees in Jackson Dart going to the Giants. And the good thing for Jackson Dart, well, there's 2. The first good thing is Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator for Josh Allen before he became the head coach of the New York Giants. And the second thing is he has two very good veteran quarterbacks to sit behind. So even if one of them gets injured, he's not next man up. So he's going to be third on the depth chart. He is very much so better than Tommy DeVito. Don't even get me started there. But he will be behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston to start the season. And I doubt he will see a snap unless the Giants either go like 15-2 and they're playing their third stringers before the playoffs, or it's the last game of the season and they want to see what Jackson Dart can do. I think he's fallen into a pretty good spot. Much better than the other quarterback from Utah that went to New York did. It's a better organization. They've won Super Bowl rings. And they have good Hall of Famers in the Hall of Fame and not a guy who's famous for pointing his finger in the sky. So, I think I like the fit. I do. Now, Mel Kiper was having a meltdown every time a quarterback was picked whose name was not Shedeur Sanders. Even number 1 overall when Cam Ward went, which I disagree with. I don't think the Titans should have gone with Cam Ward. And this is going to be a slight to my guy, Zach Wilson. It is, and I'm sorry. But one season a NFL career does not make. And that's kind of what happened with Zach Wilson, too. He had really good workouts, and he had one really good season, and then he was drafted to a crappy team. That's what's happening with Cam Ward as well. And he has the added pressure Cam Ward does of wearing the same number as Hall of Famer and one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, Warren Moon. Warren Moon said, yes, you can wear my number. That's a lot of pressure, and you're already number 1 overall. Good luck, Cam. You're on a terrible team. Oh, boy. But I digress. So that was the first player from the state of Utah to go off the board, and I was very pleased with it. Now, and it was from Kaysville, Utah. They had cameras there, ESPN did, not necessarily cameramen, but I don't know if they had cameramen actually. But anyway, it was actually pretty neat. There was a draft cam in the state of Utah. That was pretty cool. Now, let's talk about the other 2 draft picks. The only 2 that came from Utah colleges. First, Jalen Royals going to Kansas City in the 4th round. Could you find a better spot than going to a Hall of Fame head coach, a Hall of Fame general manager, a Hall of Fame quarterback, and a Hall of Fame tight end, all in the same locker room for you? I don't think there's a better spot. The Chiefs have forever been trying to find wide receivers, not named Tyreek Hill, to be that guy for Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Royals is very good. Early on in the process, he could have been a first-round pick, but a lot of the testing did not break in his favor. But I think, given time, he could be a solid receiver. I'm not going to say he's a number 1, because number 1 receivers rarely go that late in the draft, Puka Nacua notwithstanding. So we'll see what happens there, but it's a very good landing spot for Jalen Royals. Very happy for him. He was the lone bright spot in a sea of mess that was Utah State's season. And he had like 4 different quarterbacks throwing him the ball, and he still showed up and showed out. That's a very good way to go for Jalen Royals. The other draft pick came out of nowhere. Nobody was expecting this. In fact, in his post-draft write-up, Mel Kiper had no words to say for Caleb Lohner going to the Denver Broncos in round 7. Now, round 7, pick number 241 is not necessarily glamorous. That's 16 picks before the end of the draft. So at that point, you're just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard and going, all right, yeah, let's go with that guy. Caleb Lohner is intriguing. He is a basketball player, and there have been tight ends that have basketball pasts that have done very well. Now, I'm not going to say Caleb Lohner is any of these guys, but I'll give you some examples. Tony Gonzalez, Hall of Fame tight end for the Chiefs and Falcons. Antonio Gates, Hall of Fame tight end for the Chargers. Jimmy Graham, very good tight end for the Saints, Bears, Seahawks, and Saints again. So there is a history of these guys hitting, and Jimmy Graham was found by Sean Payton. Who knows? Maybe Caleb Lohner can stick. We'll see. Honestly, I don't think he will. I think he's a practice squad guy that will help you practice against taller receivers. But Sean Payton is a Hall of Famer, and I'm here recording this show. So there you go. Those are the 2 picks. That's it. University of Utah, and by way of BYU, I guess. Caleb Lohner didn't play football at BYU. He's a basketball player. And Jalen Royals from Utah State. So those are the 2 draft picks. Now, for free agent signings, I'm not going to go over minicamp invites because why would I? Those guys are probably going to go to the UFL if they continue to play football at all. But for the University of Utah, all of these players that I'm going to name are free agent signings. That means they have a contract. It's not an invite. So Junior Tafuna, I thought he was going to go in the 7th round because interior linemen in this draft were very much in demand. He did not quite get there, but he signed with the Houston Texans. On the defensive line as well, Connor O'Toole, very good edge player. Not quite sure if he's NFL good, but he went to the Seattle Seahawks. Mekhi Bernard, we all know Mekhi Bernard. We all love Mekhi Bernard. He went to the Tennessee Titans. So there's a very good chance he will make the roster because that team's terrible. Zemiah Vaughn, the all-Big 12 cornerback, went to Minnesota. And Karene Reed, he went to Denver. So Denver has a couple of Utes headed their direction. And all of those landing spots are pretty solid. The Houston Texans don't have a terribly deep defensive line for Junior Tafuna to fight through. Zemiah Vaughn's going to Minnesota. And when you play indoors on that turf, just ask the Detroit Lions, injuries are going to happen to your secondary, so there's a very real chance that Zemiah Vaughn can play. Mekhi Bernard going to Tennessee, I already went over that. Tennessee's terrible. They're just looking for bodies at this point. Connor O'Toole going to the Seahawks. The Seahawks defensive line is not what it used to be, so there's a very real shot for him. But the one that I don't know is going to stick or not is Karene Reed. Very good, but he's undersized. And in Denver, that defense is loaded, and they're going to be playing like 2 linebackers at a time. So I don't see a route for him. But that's for the University of Utah. Now to Utah State. They have Wyatt Bowles, the guard. He went to the Rams, and that was a free agent signing. There you go. So Utah State had those. Now BYU. BYU had a very good team. Very good team. They didn't have any standouts. And the standouts that they did have were either not draft eligible or returned for their either senior or junior seasons. So that's why no BYU players were drafted. The only one who had a realistic shot, and it wasn't even that realistic, was Tyler Batty. And the grade he got from the scouting sources that I trust the most was 42. Usually draft grades that low do not get drafted. And it's 50 and above. So Tyler Batty did not get drafted, but he did get signed really quick after the draft. He went to Minnesota. Jacob Robinson, he went to the 49ers, who have always had secondary issues. So he's joining up with Fred Warner and company. There's a really good shot he will make the roster, and a good shot he'll play on Sunday. Caleb Etienne, the transfer from Oklahoma State, who is a very solid tackle for BYU on both sides of the line, he went to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's offensive line has been terrible in front of Joe Burrow, so there's a good chance for him to play as well. So those are the free agent signings. All of the others that you'll see online are minicamp invites, so good luck to those guys like Darius Lassiter, Blake Mangelson, but it's going to be tough. So that's the NFL draft recap. Overall, a disappointing 3 days for all 3 schools. If you want some other names from the state of Utah, Jackson Hawes, he went to Highland, one of the arch enemies of my alma mater, Olympus. He went to Yale and then Georgia Tech. He was drafted by Buffalo. There you go. And that's really it as far as like names you would know. Jaquindon Jackson, I guess, would be another one. He started at Utah and then went to Arkansas and Texas. He went to Jacksonville. But other than that, not really any big names. So this next year, I think, is going to be a very good year, obviously for BYU players. But the University of Utah is going to have a couple of guys as well who are going to be drafted, at least on Saturday. So next year is the year for I'm not going to say all 3 schools, because who knows what's going to happen at Utah State. Transfer portal is still going to eat them alive, and they're going to get some fines there. So overall, disappointing, kind of boring, except for the fun that was watching the Shedeur Sanders saga. Do I think Shedeur Sanders should have slid that far based on talent alone? No, absolutely not. I'm with Mel Kiper. Now, obviously, Mel Kiper has forgotten more about football than I could possibly ever hope to learn. But based on what I watched during his 2-year career at Colorado, as well as what the other quarterbacks in the draft were, I think he was the best quarterback. I do. Now, he was helped by having a Heisman winner receiver with him both years. But he was hindered by a terrible offensive line and zero running game. I think in both years at Colorado, the top rusher that he had around 350 yards. That was your top rusher. Ashton Jeanty did that in one game. So when you look at that, it's like, okay, he could go into a bad team and still perform because he's used to it. Looking at the tape a little bit more, though, you could see Shedeur Sanders protecting his stats rather than doing what would work within that system, like taking sacks instead of just throwing the ball away to improve his completion percentage. Like, there was a lot of that, but not enough of it for you to go, no, I don't want him. Now, what I think happened is they didn't want the circus. These teams, the NFL as a whole, is very risk averse. And there hasn't been a personality like this coming out of college in a very long time. Very long time. Not since like Johnny Manziel, really. And the NFL saw what happened with the Johnny Manziel saga. And those 32 teams went, they're going to be scratching their heads. Is it worth it? Do we have a leadership team within the locker room that could handle this? And everyone said no until the 5th round. When the Cleveland Browns, ironically, because of Johnny Manziel, said, yeah, we'll take him. Well, we'll see what happens, because they also took another quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, who may not have the arm strength, but Dylan Gabriel was very, very accurate in all of his stops. From Central Florida to Oklahoma to Oregon, he was very accurate, and the teams just won. Colorado, Shedeur Sanders, it was a massive roster overhaul. Colorado was devoid of talent, and he got that team to almost bowl eligibility his first year, and then to bowl eligibility his second year while being the quarterback for the Heisman winner. I think Shedeur Sanders could have a solid NFL career. Do I think he is going to reach the heights that everybody seems to think? No, I don't. I don't. And I think the NFL is going to humble him a bit. It's already humbled him a little bit because he did come out after the draft and said, I could have handled the process a lot better. And I agree. The Kendrick Lamar song of Be Humble rings in my ears a little bit. Yes, you need to believe in yourself, especially at the quarterback position, especially when your father's name is Deion Sanders. But you have to be humble in the right spots, and he just wasn't. And I think that turned a lot of teams off. I think it turned them off because it seemed like he was not going to be open to coaching. So that's my view on what happened with the Shedeur Sanders saga, is that he has the talent, he has the tape, but the off-the-field stuff, and it's not even bad off-the-field stuff. You know, he's not getting in trouble with the law. He's just online all the time. And NFL teams are very averse to that sort of personality. They even were back in the day when Deion Sanders was drafted, and that was before social media. So that's what I think what happened with the Shedeur Sanders saga. It'll be interesting to see if Cleveland can do anything, because we all know their long history of quarterbacks that they've trotted out there. They've never gotten it right since Bernie Kosar. I mean, they got Baker Mayfield wrong. They got Johnny Manziel wrong, but everybody got Johnny Manziel wrong. And going back to Tim Couch when they were reintroduced to the NFL. So maybe he's the savior, maybe not. Maybe it's Dylan Gabriel. All right, so let's move it right along to Real Salt Lake. The ownership group has done some things that I was surprised to see. But first, I'm going to talk about the game against San Diego. San Diego is kind of in a free fall right now. They started off gangbusters, top of the Western Conference for a couple of weeks, looking like the real deal. past couple of weeks, it looks like they've lost their fire, and the holes in the roster are showing, which is to be expected because they're an expansion team. Fast forward to this game against Real Salt Lake, and boy howdy did those holes in that roster come to bear. First, I want to talk about that first goal from Diego Luna. Holy smokes. He had no room to shoot. There is no reason that ball got between those two defenders and around the goalie and into the net. Like, there's no reasonable explanation for how that happened, but it happened, and he got the goal. And then he scored the penalty, which should have been called way sooner than it did. It took about 5 minutes for VAR to signal down to the referee to go take a look. Then another couple of minutes for him to take a look and then come back on the field and say, yeah, it was a penalty. MLS has some real officiating problems, and I'm not even saying that as an RSL fan or person who covers Real Salt Lake. They've got some problems with this refereeing group they have. Like, these guys need to skill up and skill up soon, because it's kind of embarrassing. Real Salt Lake has been on the receiving end of some very questionable calls that I have talked about, and they were on the receiving end again, almost, in this one. The penalty against them was not a penalty. The guy, his back was to goal, and he didn't really have a realistic shot to get to the ball when Catranas pulled on him. So he went down really easy, and that was not a penalty. And then the penalty that they did get, that was a handball all day. I get the guy that he was protecting his face, but that's not the rule. If you use your hand in any way on purpose to deflect the ball, that's a handball. If it happens within the box, then it's a penalty. So I don't understand the anger and frustration that I saw from a lot of people when it came to that penalty decision, but it's a penalty all day, every day. So Real Salt Lake scores 3 goals. Where did that come from? And 2 of them were just absolutely gorgeous. Diego Luna's first goal towards the end of the first half was fantastic. And then Samuel Junqua's goal in the 66th minute from a few yards out of the box was a screamer into the back corner of the net. That was incredible. I want to see him do that every game. That was so cool to watch. So that's what happened there. And so now I'm going to move on to what Real Salt Lake did before the closure of the transfer window. Maybe they're listening to the show, but they went out and signed a couple of strikers. We'll see how they fit. One of them is 36 years old, so that guy's older than me. And he is an accomplished striker. He is 3rd all-time in scoring for Sporting Kansas City, the arch rival of Real Salt Lake, for those of you that don't know. And it's a very random rivalry. Maybe I'll have to do an episode about that, but it's very random. Anyway, they signed Johnny Russell to the club. He spent 7 seasons in Kansas City, and before that he was in England and Scotland. England with Derby County and Scotland with Dundee United, for those of you that care. I think there's one of you out there that cares. Shout out. And he scored a lot of goals, scored 67 for Sporting Kansas City, but he's 36. He's not Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not Lionel Messi. He's going to be used in spot duty, I would imagine, with all of the youth that Real Salt Lake has up front that they want to get run out there. So we'll see what happens there. But, I mean, they addressed the attack. And not only did they sign him, Mr. Russell there, Johnny, I forgot his name almost instantly. I'm so sorry. William Agada, they got from Sporting Kansas City. Like, what? Since when do rivals do business with each other? My goodness. Anyway, Real Salt Lake signed William Agada from Sporting Kansas City for up to $850,000 general allocation money, which basically transfer funds. So they bought the contract of William Agada. He's 25, and from what I could tell, it's pretty good. He has 21 goals and 5 assists in 64 regular season games. And he could be the guy, a go-to number 9 that Real Salt Lake has lacked, that I've been talking about all season. So maybe they are listening. Who knows? Hello. And Christian Orongo, Chicho, was that guy last year. He drove Real Salt Lake to the top of the Western Conference. I talked about it ad nauseum last year. You don't need to hear me talk about it again. But now he joins the group of Diego Luna, Diogo Gonçalves, and Dominic Marchuk. So the front is coming together. You can see what they're doing. Johnny Russell gives them an option off the bench for the last 20 minutes of a game if they need some goals. And they have William Agada now for the void, the gaping black void that Chicho Arango left when he went to San Jose rather, this past offseason. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting what Real Salt Lake is doing. And maybe I was wrong about the Miller family. We'll see. This could be an early salvo saying, hey, we're not the miserly owners that we were when it came to the Jazz, because this is almost $1 million being invested into the team mid-season. That doesn't really happen. Just ask English Premier League fans how rare that is. So $1 million in MLS, I would equate to almost, I would say $50 million in the Premier League. It's a big investment. And William Agada has scored, and he is very athletic. He is big. And he will take a lot of pressure off of Diego Luna, because right now, as I've said a lot, Real Salt Lake goes as Diego Luna goes. Whenever Diego Luna scores a goal, Real Salt Lake usually either is very close to winning the game or they've won the game. Now, they have 0 draws this season, which is just an outstanding stat. They have 0 draws this season. They're the only team in the Western Conference with 0 draws. In fact, they're the only team in MLS to have 0 draws 10 games into the season. None. That's crazy. So they either win or they lose. It's like we're playing American football here or something. Moving forward, I'm encouraged by what I saw the Miller family do with the purchase of a couple of guys. Well, Johnny Russell was a free agent signing, so they didn't really spend any money to get him. But they did spend to get Agada. It'll be interesting to see. I'm encouraged, but I don't know if it's a smokescreen or not. But with this signing, it encourages me thinking, okay, maybe Real Salt Lake can make a push for the playoffs, because they are the only team in the Western Conference to have made the playoffs in each of the last 4 years. The only one. So there is a history of being consistent. I wouldn't say that's successful, because they never won the cup. That's success. But they have a history of being consistent. Pablo Mastroeni has proven to be a very good manager. Now he's going to have to fit these pieces together, and hopefully Agada can live up to that signing and put some goals in the net, man. That's what Real Salt Lake really needs. And for Real Salt Lake to stop getting red cards, man. I know the officiating is really bad in MLS, but getting red carded out when you already have a yellow card and you're doing gamesmanship to not throw the ball in, Bodie Hidalgo, throw the ball in. What's the point in getting that red card? You're suspended now. There's no point. You're up 3-1, and you're in the 94th minute of stoppage time. Why are you wasting time at that point? Just throw the ball in. Do you really think you're going to give up 2 goals in a minute? I mean, it's possible. It's the MLS, but please, be smarter. Use your head. All right, I've got about 2 minutes left. I'm going to talk about the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Shadow launch. So it's a remaster, came out, kind of shadow dropped. There was never really a release date when Bethesda said, yeah, we've got a team working on this. And it came out. I've played about 14 hours. The game has crashed on me 6 times. So it is fitting in very well with the Bethesda history of launches. So, I mean, I guess never change Bethesda, I guess. But this game feels a lot like Skyrim, and that's a very, very, very good thing. It sucks you in, and what have I said in the past about these types of games? If it is a good game, you will find yourself saying, oh, just one more mission. Oh, I can get to that town, and then I can stop and save. Oh, I'm in that town now. Oh, look, there's another mission I can do. And then you're doing that for the next 3 hours. That's what Oblivion does. Now, Oblivion's already come out. It's already, it's like 15 years old, and it's been remastered. So it's already been a masterful game. When it first came out, 9s and 10s out of 10. Now, again, it's very well received. 8s and 7s out of 10. A lot of the lower scores are because of the crashing that's happening for a lot of people. And it's not just on PC. People on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series have reported the same issues. And so it's something that goes deeper than just not being optimized for computer, which is a trap a lot of games fall into. But overall, I'm very pleased. And it's not a $60 game if you just buy the base edition. It's $49.99, which is an olive branch, I think, from a AAA game studio going, we get it. New games are expensive. Here's a remaster that was very well done. We're going to knock it down $10 as opposed to the $60. Now, if you want the digital deluxe edition, that one's $59.99. Go nuts. I have no problem with that because you do get extra in-game items. It's not something dumb like, oh, you get a soundtrack and a digital art book. You get those in addition, but you also get in-game items. You get an armor set. And a horse armor, too, which is a funny thing because Blizzard is selling horse armor for Diablo 4. Like, there's a $10 version, a $25 version, and a $100 version for cosmetic horse armor in Diablo 4. And Bethesda is saying, yeah, if you upgrade to our special deluxe edition, you get it thrown in for free. I think that's a funny little poke at, I guess, their coworkers because they're both owned by Microsoft now. But it's just a funny thing. Overall, get Oblivion. If you've never played it before, I didn't really ever get into Oblivion. That was before I really dove into RPGs. Back when that came out, I was the guy that was always on Halo or Call of Duty, Gears of War, Mass Effect multiplayer. Mass Effect multiplayer, not the game itself. That's what I was playing back then. So this is like a fresh playthrough for me, and it's a brand new game for me. It feels a lot like Skyrim, but that is, it's the Elder Scrolls, right? It's supposed to. So overall, on Matt's scale of games, this is a get it. $49.99 is great. You don't need the Daedric armor set for your character, and you don't need the armor for your horse. So if you don't need that stuff, you don't want that stuff, you don't think it looks cool, save yourself $10. But overall, get this game. It's very fun. All right, everybody, that is the episode this week. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know if you agree on my take about Shadur Sanders and why he fell so far. I feel like something that it's a lot of people are afraid to talk about because of the sway Coach Prime has, and the networks just don't want to address it, and so I talked about it. But let me know if you agree there. Let me know if you agree that the next crop of players from the University of Utah, BYU, are going to see more success on draft weekend next year. And let me know if you think I was wrong about my rant about the Millers. But as always, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave.